Welcome to Conversations with Zi and Vindesh, a weekly discussion that explores common life challenges and offers practical solutions. Learn more at dharmamedia.com. That's DHARMA media.com.
The session is being recorded. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of Conversations with Radheya and Master Zi. So, Master Zi, today we're talking about cell phones, and we're talking about biology. And I find this topic very interesting because if you look at this little device that we have that we carry around all over the place, this has completely rewired our entire functioning. So it's changed our brain, it's changed our habits, it's changed the way that we interact with the world, it's changed our relationships. And in some ways, you could argue it's for the better. Like a lot of forms of technology, we have instant communication. You can access information on the fly. You can be more productive. So a lot of times if I'm writing, I'll take notes on my phone and that's automatically synced up with my computer. I can take photographs, I can take videos, I can share experiences. You can have people who are connecting. My kids can talk to my parents on FaceTime whenever they want. I think about my parents when they came from India. They couldn't even call their parents because it was $10 a minute. And now you can instantly connect with anyone around the world. So obviously some very positive benefits coming out of technology and cell phones. But on the other hand, we need to be careful about how we're using this and what impact it's having on our brain function. This is something that I've noticed more and more. So as you know, as I'm getting this music project up and running and we're getting our social media up and running, I'm just spending more time on social media. I never used to. I never got that much value out of it. I think it's a little bit strange, the whole concept of following people and being influenced by someone else. I never saw that much value in. So I tended to stay away from social media. But now that I'm getting my own content out there and trying to be one of those people that I never related to, which is a little bit ironic, but so be it. That's the world that we live in. I'm finding that I'm naturally gravitating to my phone more and more, and I've become addicted to my phone. So it's simple things. If I'm posting on social media, I'm checking in to see if there are comments, to see if there are views, to see if there are likes. I'm looking at what other people are putting on social media. Part of social media is engaging with your audience. So I'm looking to see what other people have posted so I can like it, so I can comment on it. And I'm finding that that leads to some interesting behaviors on my part. I guess there's a baseline anxiety, see, and you can get into this in a second. But there's this latent impulse. I mean, it's almost like there's something sitting in my brain which is constantly telling me, go check your phone, go check your phone. Go check in, go see what's going on, make sure you're not missing anything. If I'm just standing around and I'm not doing anything, I can almost feel my hand at certain points reaching for my phone just to check in. I was hanging out with Pretty Tony when I was out there, and we were sitting down, and he said something like, you know, this is great because we're having a conversation and neither of us has checked our phone. And I thought to myself, yeah, that's true. So great for us. But I also have to be aware of it. You know, I have to consciously pay attention to the conversation and make it a point that I'm not checking in on the phone, because otherwise I'm just going to do it unconsciously. And if I look at the effect that this has on me, it puts me in this state of anxiety, as I talked about. It gets me a little bit wired. It gets me at a point where it's just very hard to be calm, you know, to have the mind stop spinning, because there's always something going on. There's always this question about, what am I missing? What else is out there? What information can I find? So it's hard for the mind to settle. It makes it harder to go to sleep. It makes it harder to be present with people. And so there's this whole litany of side effects which are detrimental, which we can manage. And I've got my own strategies for managing it, but it's very hard to manage. And I tend to think of myself as someone who's pretty aware of my surroundings, who's pretty aware of my habits. And if I look at myself and I think, okay, even with the awareness that I have, it's hard for me sometimes to resist the phone, or I'm spending an amount of time on the phone, which is unhealthy. Even though I know it's unhealthy, I do it anyway. And then I think about children who don't have that same impulse control, whose brains are just developing, who've also never known a time without a cell phone or without a device. At least for us, yeah, you could argue that it's addictive. You also have something to compare it to. You've got a world where this didn't exist, and you know what the alternative is. But you think about children who have been raised with this technology, and they don't know what it's like not to have this technology. So when my youngest was 2 years old, she would go up to the TV and she would start swiping. She would swipe the TV because she assumed that it was like an iPad or a device. And it seeps into conversation. Now my kids will use the word pause because they're always hitting pause on the iPad whenever they're stopping whatever show they're watching. So that's their lingo for conversations. If they want to get a point across, it's pause the conversation, take a break so we can express our point of view. So it's really changed the way that they think and the way that they see the world. And again, part of it is good, part of it is bad. But on this podcast and this series of discussions that we're having, we really want to give people the tools that they can use to manage their health. So we can get the benefits of technology, but we don't get into this spiral where we're anxious, where we're wasting all of our time looking at useless information, where we can't sleep, we can't be present with the people that we care about. And so that's the topic of today's discussion. And Z, to kick us off, I mean, maybe you can take us a little bit into the anatomy of the brain or some of the studies that you've been looking at. If you look at technology and particularly cell phones, what have you found? So what does the research say about how this is affecting us?
You're right. There's so much out there now. And here's the problem is, it's because the technology is such a great power in our world. It has now become king-like, deity-like. The researchers are now at odds with tech companies, propaganda companies of all kind, because it's a warning. As the guy James Cameron, who made Terminator, said a few months ago, he said, "I warned you." And the research is coming out. It's showing active brain scans, which was done a number of years ago, and it showed young people being queried, asked questions and so forth, and their brain algorithms are lighting up, showing that it's going to the motor cortex, sending motor planning and motor neuronal packaging down to the hand, reach for the phone to answer questions that would normally be answered by accessing the hippocampus and things like that. So they're finding these young people are not developing that part of the brain that deals with memory and associating our world with experiences. So everything is now going to another region of the brain where you're going to reach for your phone, fire up first the motor cortex, and then fire up the visual cortex in order to access information into the prefrontal cortex and then discern that information without having a memory. So you see the dilemma that we're in. Now you won't be able to tell what is real and what's not real, what you experienced and what you heard. You feel things, you watch your body changing because, of course, you're not as physically active anymore. So your stimuli isn't coming from the visceral interactions in the world, hot, cold, touch, texture, feel, smell. Most of your sensual interactions are coming simply through the visual cortex, and it has to then create a distortion of the world to provide you with color, smell, texture, and so forth. It's just like a person listening for things, someone describing the smell of something as opposed to smelling it, describing how something feels instead of feeling it. But if you have no record of what that thing feels or smells like, then you have to go deeper into a type of dementia. So what we're doing with our phones is we're basically importing dementia into our lives. So we are seeing brains that are becoming more geriatric, right? They look like geriatric brains, but they're younger people's brains. And so you have a few things working for you. You live in an altered world that's not, it's not what you feel, it's touch, smell, or taste. You're not physically moving that much. You're not engaging. You're not getting a visceral loop. You're not getting feedback from other human beings. So you live in an altered world. You might as well be high on drugs because that phone, one of the things that happens is the same thing as when you get a hit of drugs or a hit of certain kinds of drugs. Whenever you get that news feed that you're used to or you like and you like it, that's almost like a monkey asking for more dopamine in the monkey test, right? The rat and monkey test. So you're asking for more dopamine. You're asking for more of a rush, more of something that makes you feel alive. So when you're not getting that, now that you've taxed it or you've depleted the body's ability to make it, you go into a deeper visceral, physical depression, cortical collapse. You have people experiencing what they call cortical collapse, where everything just shuts down. And then you need this outside stimulus to bring you back online. People are waking up out of anesthesia in the hospital, reaching for their phone. And when you come out of surgery, there's a high probability that you have post-surgical dementia, or what they call, I think the correct term deals with a kind of a cognitive anomaly that goes on, or distress from being under anesthesia. And so the first thing you do, you don't know where you're at, you don't know who you are, you're reaching your phone to locate you in the universe. That's a form of dementia. And so the more that we normalize that, the more you'll be seeing, for one, the younger people are growing up and missing a part of their brain. It's not developing. For those who are older, whose brain is already developed, you're going to see it atrophy and deteriorate at a lot faster rate because we're not using it. Again, nature follows a simple formula. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? And be it a muscle or be it your brain. So our brain function has been so exported to this device, which again, I'm not against technology. I think for the sake of communication, easy access to information, the ability to interact with people all over the world instantaneously, I think it's a good thing. I think maybe it should be unleashed or kind of unhindered in other ways. They have to open the gate so we can use this in a free speech type of way where people can simply access information in real time. And you see the challenges of that. When you see things in real time, it's hard to say that it didn't exist if you have a direct portal of information. You have a window into the world. And so there are mechanisms in there that in a nanosecond can filter what you see. And that'll bring us into the AI era. But before we get into that, we want to think about what's changing in people. So you have fewer and fewer relationships based on sensual attraction, real basic human stuff. It used to be a nice thing to hear somebody's voice, right? Let's say you're a young person, you're going through a young love. If you weren't around that person, what was the most beautiful thing about a young love? Was hearing that girl's nice voice, right? What was the next thing is that you would be around her and she didn't smell like a dude. She was like a girl. It was like soft and all those sorts of things that are training you on human relationships. It's training you on attraction, on connection. What about seeing a loved one after they've been gone a long time? You miss them and you get to see them and hug them and have that touch. We've always talked about the power of touch. You talk about with children, the concept of failure to thrive. We experienced that years ago over when they had the troubles over in Poland and Czechoslovakia and all that. The kids that weren't being cared for, they had a failure to thrive. They just stopped developing. So we haven't changed as a species. So we're seeing more and more people with a failure to thrive. So you have this social awkwardness, and we easily write it off as autism. They've just worn that out. People that don't understand basic boundaries or how to make eye contact, how to feel another person when they interact. None of that is necessary if you're using the cell phone. Again, it's not in itself a bad thing. We said a few years ago, we should use it. It shouldn't use us. People are getting worked up over likes or comments. This is a weird thing. And I told you about it. We had to talk about that. You can't get worked up over comments because that's not a real form of human debate, human discourse. Because if you're sitting face to face with a person, I just mentioned that to you before we were recording, people will change their opinion if they're sitting right across the table from you.
Yeah, you're 100% right about that.
Completely different opinion. People will say,
yeah, online they might pick an argument for the sake of picking an argument. It might be, you said it, it's sport. It might be something to do. They might enjoy just pushing buttons.
Yeah, and as soon as you interact, there's a regulation that goes on. And it's not that they can't speak their truth, but they will have to stand by their truth. They have to stand by their opinion. They are up for immediate checking, immediate fact checking, immediate kind of courtesy checking, right away. They're up for immediate respectful engagement parameters. Online, you don't have to do that. So I don't really pay attention to comments because most of the vile comments that people make and things like that, it's training a vileness in them. So you will see sicker and sicker people because they're not really attacking you or me because they don't know you and me. There's no connection to you and me. They're attacking ideas. So you can't attack an ideal. It's intangible. It's floating. So they're attacking ghosts. So the more they attack ghosts, the more they attack phantoms, the more demented they become, the more unhinged they become. So when they finally engage this world, it's usually not in a healthy manner. So you'll see because of the degradation of the brain due to the modern ways in which we engage technology, there will be more random killings and weird behavior of people. There will be fewer healthy relationships, all these kinds of things. And so mark my word, and I'm going to say this a few times. You heard it first on the DPO, right? You heard it first from us. You will start seeing more and more unexplained outbursts, outrages, killings, homicides, abuse that will baffle you. Like, what the hell's going on with people? Well, our brains are changing in a way that isn't healthy. And if we're going to be healthy and we're going to opt out, we must do tech breaks. We said this a couple of years ago. You got to train yourself to get off the tit of the cell phone. You got to really wean yourself from that by maybe 1-2 days a week. If you don't need your phone, put it down somewhere. Only take emergency calls or relevant calls. Just that. Don't even check the news on it. Use another means. Use that time to maybe read a book, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, Z. This is why it becomes so hard, because it's not just you. You're part of a system. So, for example, if you have a phone, there's an expectation that everyone around you has that you're always available. So even if you want to do what you're talking about and put the phone down and you don't respond to texts, you don't respond to calls, either people are going to freak out, they're going to say, oh my God, what happened? And their mind is going to start spinning and say, I can't get a hold of Z. Was he in some horrible accident? Was he kidnapped? Is he even alive? Or they might just get mad at you. What the hell? Why isn't he responding? Doesn't he think that I'm important? Doesn't he care? So I feel like that's part of it as well. You know, it's not just us. And there are strategies certainly that we can use to manage ourselves. But it becomes difficult because we're embedded in this broader system and we're connected to the people who are around us. And so that expectation ends up, it becomes hard to break ourselves off of this dependency, but then also break that expectation that other people have.
But again, Vin, as you describe it, that's a form of anxiety and dementia itself, trying to figure out what other people are thinking about you. And I know that there's definitely a generational thing. I have very close friends and we talk on a regular basis. And if I don't get their call, they'll say, oh, I figured you were busy. They know my schedule. They can almost picture what I was doing. And there are other people that will react in a myriad of ways. Or you must not like me. Am I bothering you? I've had people tell me all kinds of stuff. No, you know what? I have a life that I can't always answer the phone. I might be dodging a highway shooter in LA traffic. I don't have time to get on the phone and just have some abstract moment of conversation with you. It's not that I don't like you. It's just that it's not that important.
Yeah, I'm driving. I don't want to drive off a cliff while I'm checking my phone.
And you see people reaching their phone. We had these horrible storms. Bad enough driving here, but then add unprecedented rainfall. And you're trying to find a phone. Many people die this way. So even as you speak, you also see that we're all being affected by this collective cloud of dementia. It's like one of those horror movies where this cloud comes over the village and everybody goes crazy. This is the cloud. And they call it the cloud. Half the stuff, I get some text, I don't even know what it means. It says, you need to put more in the cloud. Like, what do I need to put in the cloud? I don't want it, the cloud. I don't want my information in the cloud. Who the hell?
Yeah, I mean, it's just data. It's information. You don't know what it is, who's tracking you, where it goes.
Cloud? Who has access to the cloud? Why is it safer in the cloud than it is in my pocket? Right? Who is it that I trust? Is it Zuckerberg? Is it Musk? Who is the one that owns the cloud? That I can upload all this important information to the cloud, and for $3.99, I can have a special place in the cloud. You see, this mentality, we're already going crazy. There was a time when people I know and who were very scholarly, I saw a thing, a guy was having an argument on Facebook with another person on Facebook about the way he had said something about his name or something really ridiculous. And I so wanted to call the guy and say, remember who you are. Why are you arguing with someone on Facebook about anything? Why are you revealing your emotions and that they can push your buttons and that you're so fragile that you need to have this public airing out of a petty grievance?
Yeah. Yeah. And the more information you provide, it just becomes a weapon that someone can use against you.
Wow. That's what I'm saying. Now you're demented. You might as well be a 90-year-old Uncle so-and-so who, lost his mind back in the Battle of the Bulge or whatever. It's like, what's going on? How easily we're influenced. You hear about these kids during the Ajax challenge where they eat Ajax or something. My God, this is a form of dementia. I tell my little ones, and again, we all are affected by the emanations of this particular device. My little one who has ACC doesn't say a lot of words. What he can say really clearly is, give me my iPad.
Yeah, you don't want to mess around with that.
Give me my iPad. I'm saying, wait, dude.
It's not just the kids. You take it away. You ever see someone who can't find their phone? They're in this high state of panic, running around, screaming, like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
And you're not important. Very few of us hold any really important, relevant position. All of us, when we die, the days will keep going on. So what the hell, man? What the hell? So we all are having and trying to manage this dementia and maybe turn it back around and get healthy. But it will affect not just the way we behave in that way, but it affects our health, our ability to relate to our well-being. They're going to start sending you posts and things about diseases, which they started years ago, by the way. That was started before social media became what it is today. What was it back maybe in the early 2000s? They had something called shaky leg or itchy leg syndrome. Nobody had ever heard of that. But once they put it out in the media, it was on the radio, do you have itchy leg syndrome? And something like that. And then all of a sudden you're scratching your leg, because they were really experimenting with how to play with human brains. Now you go online and there's all manner of things, miracle cures, diseases that need to be addressed that no one's ever heard of. And you're just running people around. It's a madhouse. Right now we're like in an old-fashioned madhouse at a circus. So what we can do is these tech breaks. It's really important for those who are opting out of this to take tech breaks. Just put it down.
Yeah, Z, I'm going to pull us back. I want to pull us back for a second before we get to tech breaks, because we've talked about so many aspects of the behavior that we see when people start getting addicted to their phones. I want to focus on two areas that are really big for a lot of people. So one is depression and anxiety, and the second is relationships. And both of those, if you look at what's happening in the world, they're going downhill. The mental health statistics are terrible. They were going down before COVID. They've gotten worse since COVID. There's statistics like 1 out of every 3 teenage girls has thought about suicide. You've got people on medication, and this has become normalized. And a lot of times people don't even realize they're anxious and depressed because everyone else is, and it's so pervasive, you can't even diagnose it as an issue. So that's one thing. And then if you look at relationships, as we've talked about, it's getting harder and harder to meet someone, to find someone that you're compatible with, that you can connect with, that you actually know how to have a conversation with, because that's been beaten out of us with the technology. So if we think about those two areas, and we start with the anxiety and depression, let's go through that for a second. We talked about how the cell phone triggers a dopamine response. And it also puts us in this fight or flight state. So if you get a text or you get an alert and you see that little notification popping up on Instagram, or you see some notification on WhatsApp or your texting service, it's kind of like this little bell that's going off in your brain. Oh my God, there's a threat. There's something that I need to pay attention to because the primal part of my brain is saying, this is new information about my environment and it could put me in danger. So you're always getting these alerts and the brain is thinking danger, danger, danger. There's something going on. And it can't distinguish, just the way that we're wired, our biology can't distinguish between actual threats and these perceived threats or phantom threats that are coming from alerts on our phone, which are generally about nothing. Sometimes there are alerts to tell us about alerts. Like, I'm alerting you that you haven't looked at the last 10 alerts, so go and check your messages. It's just stuff that is incredibly trivial, but from a biological standpoint, it has a pretty big effect on us. But walk us through that, Z. So when you start thinking about that loop of these constant alerts, these constant messages, what is that doing to our mental state and to our levels of anxiety and depression?
Well, for one, every time you have those hits of that neurochemistry, be it the dopamine, the serotonin, all these kinds of things that kind of give us the coloring of our life, those are highly refined or slowly developed chemicals in our body. The human brain produces chemicals similar to LSD, but they're in very small portions, just minute portions, microliters, just tiny bits. But they are depleted rather easily, and they're slow to be replenished. Once they're depleted, you tend to feel tired, fatigued. You have lower tolerances for things. Then you start to try and seek for adrenaline. That's why there's so many ads for energy boosters, right? Energy boosters. There's people walking around just drinking Red Bull like it's mineral water or whatever, or they're looking at all these new coffees and different caffeine alternatives, ways of absorbing caffeine and so forth. Why do you need that? Well, you're depleted. Your body's ability to give you the energy you need to go through the day has been depleted because there's this constant hit, this constant rush. And after a while, you just tend to leave your body. You tend to leave your body. Okay, the network is disrupted, Caitlin. I don't know. Can you still hear me, Vin? Let's give it a second. We lost Vin for a minute.
I've noticed an all-around issue with the internet.
Hey, I can see you, Z.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay.
You were talking about how the energy is depleted.
So you think about your body as a refinery, and the brain is this computer that runs on these different refined fluids, these various chemicals that get it to do certain things. You think about a battery that has a cathode and an anode, and from there you develop a useful current source to run your devices. Our brain is doing that 24/7. And some of these chemicals become highly toxic once they're exhausted. There's something called adenosine that's a neurotoxin that we develop from just neurosynaptic activity all day. You can read about it. It's nothing that's a hidden secret. But then you start to experience a numbers of fatigue. You have the physical body fatigue. Excuse me. You have the mental fatigue on different layers, your ability to have higher judgment, the calculations that need to go on in your brain so you can live your life. All those things become fatigued. And when we go into more of a limp home mode and we're just getting through the day, then you reach for your device and you look for another shot. Maybe it's not there. So now you're going into your hormonal stores. So you have all these ads for impotence and early onset of menopause and all these other kinds of things that are happening. And that's for maybe older people over 30 or something. Now, the younger people aren't even developing these things. So you have a lot of this kind of eunuch type energy where these people are generally asexual. And whatever your views on sex is, that's not the point. It's the point that that's a very primal and natural thing for people to be sensual and sexual. So you're seeing that is being depleted. So it changes the people into more of these kind of droids or eunuchs. And I think that's a good way to put it, droids. So we're becoming angry.
Yeah, say a little more about that, Z, because this is really interesting. You're saying that you need so much energy to keep on going, to keep the rush going, that even that sexual energy that you have, you're using up, chasing whatever the next high is or the next form
So
of
you
stimulus.
go from using neurochemistry to using primal chemistry, which is hormonal energy. So you have a lot of people with thyroid issues, a lot of people with hormone issues. Younger and younger people are looking for fitness aids, how to get their energy up. They're looking for the magic smoothie or the magic mix to feel inspired, right? And the drugs that they typically use are so harmful for the body. These high caffeinated drinks. I saw a drink the other day at one of the stores, and I think it had 1,500 milligrams of caffeine with a small warning, this could kill you. You can have a heart attack drinking this. Of course it could. Your heart will jump out of your chest. And then you don't have any vital fluids in your body to really support this 150 beat a minute heart thing that you're going to do after you drink this stuff. But you're going to have an artificial sense of, I can accomplish many tasks, I can stay up. And so, but you can stay up, just like years ago, truck drivers used to take a drug called benzodrine, it's called bennies. And when they had long haul truckers, and they start having illusions, different delusions of what was going on. They had something called black dog syndrome, where these guys would be so wired up on benzodrine that they would imagine a black dog was running down the street next to them, or dinosaurs or something, because they're so sleep deprived, but they're able to stay up. But the cognitive function is shut down. Even though they're awake, they're not present. I think there was recently a really horrific truck crash where the driver had been driving all night, drinking Red Bull, and he was awake, but he wasn't present. Again, dementia. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. Mark our words here on this channel. You're going to see it, and it's going to be a concern. Within the next 18 months, we're going to be hearing more and more about our concerns about some form of dementia being very present in society. And that's where we're at, man.
Yeah. So we're in this state where we're just going all the time. We keep on fueling that with more stimulus, with more energy drinks or whatever. And then you're saying inevitably we come crashing down because we can't sustain it. So we deplete our energetic reserves, which is bad for our health. It's bad for our energy. It's bad for our sex life. It's bad for going out to the gym. It means that we never properly rest, which is going to make the situation worse because we're always in that state like, oh, I need something else. I can't come down. I got to find something else to pay attention to. So even if we're sleeping, we're not really resting and we're not really recharging. And in a way, it's a very literal form of depression. I mean, it's exactly what depression is because we're on this high. We run out of energy and then the system is depressed and we have to withdraw and we just need to recharge. We need to reset. But then when you see Z, and maybe you've got some observations around this, instead of dealing with the problem, which is I'm overstimulated, I'm overspent, I'm not giving myself a chance to recover, it's more like, I don't want to be in this depressed state. I'm feeling depressed, so let me get some therapy, let me get some medication, let me do something to put a Band-Aid on the problem, and I'm going to keep my habits going. So what is the impact of that? I mean, presumably, if we keep the machine running.
Some of this stuff, I hate to say it's obvious because it's so obvious. Let's use, for example, social trends of all kinds. We talked last week about Ozempic. I really would love for the folks that vibe with us to really go over that in your head. There will be no pill, there will be no shot that will correct your bad judgment. That's it. That's the bottom line. And if you go for something like that, your executive function is greatly diminished. There is no reason to buy land on Mars. There's no reason. There's no reason to invest in weed farming on the moon in the Sea of Tranquility. There's no reason to believe that because you make bad decisions about your health, that modern medicine will invest billions of dollars into allowing you to continue to make those bad decisions, and you can correct them with a shot or pill. It's a scam. It's a flim flam. You're being bamboozled. So don't go for it. And the more that you have dementia based on the endless connection to the World Wide Web, the less you're going to be able to resist scams. The more easy you are duped, the more gullible you become. The facts of that, not my opinion, but the facts of that is, look at the political state of the world. Look at the political state in America. Look at your political choices. Would you have imagined 20 years ago that the presidential race is amongst two of the least qualified people in America to run in that position? There is no hope. There is no hope if you are, all the people are under mass dementia, suffering from mass delusion that is constantly encouraged because of the convenience and the dopamine hit. We've all been sold a hit of crack. If you remember during the crack epidemic of the 80s or whenever it was, that they used to say, I remember watching a news station, all you need is one hit of crack and you're addicted to it. And it was a real funny thing because back in the 80s, there were a couple of news broadcasters who were broadcasting about the crack epidemic. And they would say, you take one hit and you're hooked. They ended up being crackheads because, yeah, there were a number of popular newspaper people and journalists who ended up being crackheads because they tested the theory. Well, I immediately heard that. And I said, why the hell would I even try something? And I asked a crackhead, how the hell did you get on crack? He says, well, I heard that if you take one hit, you're hooked, but I didn't believe it. That just sounds like that's the most ridiculous dare I've ever heard. That's like playing Russian roulette with 5 bullets in the chamber. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or testing the law of gravity. If I jump off a cliff, what's going to happen?
Right. And so this is where we're at. So we're all testing the waters. And what I would challenge us opt-outs to do is, again, can you take a break? And here's what I hear from people. Oh, I got just one more thing. I do it. I send you all kinds of things that I think are relevant for our project, right? I send you all kind of stuff. And then sometimes you just got to stop. I'm going to stop. That's the real test to see if you're a crackhead or not. Can you put the crack in front of you and not smoke it? That's the real test.
Yeah.
Can you put a line of Coke in front of you and not snort it? Can you get?
Yeah, I don't know if we can. At this point, I feel like we're all addicts. We can manage it. Maybe we can have some intelligent strategies
Until
to put
you
the
can
phone away.
stop it, you're still hooked. It's like these alcoholics, these people that go to AA and all this kind of stuff, and they just come up to you and introduce you and say, hey, I'm Joe, an alcoholic. I said, okay, well, I won't be letting you drive. Oh, no, I'm not drunk now. Somebody came to me and said, hey, I'm Joe, the alcoholic. I'm like, what? Well, you want to celebrate? You want to go have a beer? I don't know. Why are you telling me this? So I don't want to be addicted to anything other than the pursuit of knowledge. So we all do ourselves a favor by exercising that muscle of restraint. Give yourself a break, if nothing else, to test it, to go cold turkey. There's a wonderful old movie called Lady Sings the Blues. Diana Ross stars as Billie Holiday. And there's a scene where she's going cold turkey from heroin. Back in the day, how they used to do it. They would lock people in these sanitariums and just let them go through it. And in my lifetime, I've seen people who were getting off of addictions, and they have something called DTs. I don't know if you guys ever heard of DTs. It's known as delirium tremors. And they think that roaches and bugs are crawling over their body, and you have to tape their hands up because they're trying to peel their skin out because they think roaches and rats or something are crawling all over them. And it's the detox. And right now, young kids are going through rage type of tremors, getting them off their internet devices. So you have to limit the device. And interesting, I observed with my youngest son, is because he has the Einstein brain syndrome, is that he'll get to a point, he'll just get tired of it and just throw it away. He has the better restraint than anybody. He'll demand the iPad. He'll watch some weird stuff. He's weird stuff he likes to watch. And then he'll say, enough, boom. Sometimes it's too ridiculous for him. So he'll just hurl it off somewhere and he's done with it. And he'll go and build some sort of nuclear device in his play area. We want to have that ability to just say, enough, this is garbage. Or if we find ourselves engaging it too much. Oh, I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Oh no, I don't like it. I like it. I like it. That's an addiction. There's nobody there. This isn't real. It's not real. Those people won't love or hate you if you don't like or keep scrolling. There will be no social reward for you. So let's be careful what's happening to our own mind and observe those around us and maybe get back to exploring human interaction. Maybe if you call somebody instead of texting them all the time, you'll find sometimes you might call people, they never answer the phone because maybe they're not there, because that takes us to the next thing, AI.
Yeah, you know what, Z? I read something which I thought was so weird. It was a survey, I think it was done for Gen Zs and millennials, asking them about whether they texted or whether they took phone calls. And one person said the strangest thing. They said, I don't know why you think you're entitled to a conversation with me. Why are you entitled to having me pick up my phone, interrupt what I'm doing, and have a conversation? I'm not going to respond to that. So I'm just going to respond to text. And on the one hand, I get it if you don't want to talk to people. But on the other hand, aren't you missing out? Don't you get value from human interaction?
They don't.
From communication?
They don't. It's being usurped by this kind of cyberdyne romance. So I would say right now we're probably at 50-50. 50% of the people are okay with human interaction. 50% of the people are indifferent. And the real test.
Yeah, we talked about it before. It's almost like we're turning into a different species.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you spend all your time in tech land, in the virtual world, you don't need to be physically fit. You don't need to be interesting. You don't need to have social skills. You don't have to be able to hunt or get food or romance someone else. It's all fake. It's all virtual. Well, you could put on your avatar costume and be a dinosaur from the 1950s playing guitar, whatever it is, it's all made up. So the requirements that we have to live in the real world are completely different than the requirements to exist in this virtual cyberscape that people are headed into.
Right. So when we live in the cyberdyne world, we've crossed another threshold of decline. So people are now having what they believe to be intimate relationships with digitally generated characters. And they're okay with that. They have no longing for other human beings. They only need to keep their devices charged. So all they have a longing for is enough energy and enough bandwidth to provide them with their lover. So there's the end. That's the end. That is the end. So now we turn human reproduction over to different types of technology. I think they just figured out how to gestate a baby in a pig's uterus. So that's where we're headed. And like every horror movie, we know how it's going to end up. And it's been sold to us by very masterful people who have no basic humanity in them. Take a look at the faces of these people when they have conversation, the disconnect, the sheer lack of anything that vaguely looks like human ardor. It's like, good God, these are the people you're listening to? They want to implant a chip.
Yeah, and then you talk to some of them. You talk to the people who run these companies. First of all, you've got a whole set of people who used to be in social media or used to work for Apple who've left and have talked about how addictive these devices and the software is. Not just how addictive it is, but how it's been designed to hook people, just like cigarettes. And all of the discussions about how they care about mental health, they care about children.
They care about nothing. They care about nothing. That's why they're trying to convince you to put an implant in your brain, not to address paralysis, not to address vision challenges, not to deal with hearing or anything like that, but how to keep you online. That's what they want to know. How can we keep you online? Instead of fixing your body or using that technology to help the handicap, we want to figure out how you can be online all day, all the time, infinitely, using your body as a generator to run the device that connects you to the neural network. So this is pretty twisted. And really, I think not so much to just judge this twisted, but to judge us that we are okay with this, understanding where it will lead. I had a conversation with a young man who's heavily in tech. He's a tech investor and has a couple of tech businesses. And the challenge is he was from Canada. So Canadians are still very humane compared to Americans, right? They tend to be more like human, more caring about, how would you describe it? You know, Canadians, they're like maybe people in America were maybe in the cowboy days or something. Hey, howdy, neighbor. You know, Canadians are actually,
Yeah, they're nicer.
yeah, whatever it is, they tend to be nicer people. And he's here working, and he was telling me, yeah, AI is going to free us up. It's going to allow people not to work. All the jobs will be done by, robotics and AI. And he says in about 20 years, it's going to be just this really, the world's going to turn around. It's going to be utopia. And I said, wow, you guys are weird up in Canada. In 5 years, that's going to end humanity. None of these people develop.
Yeah, and the same promise has been there for a long time. Yeah. The promise of technology, there were discussions about this 50 years ago, 70 years ago, about how technology would reduce work weeks to 10 or 20 hours. People would have all this leisure time. But it actually takes us in the opposite direction. It means that we're constantly plugged in. We can do that much more. And a lot of it is about control, because it's not about what's possible, but it's about what other people want you to do.
Yeah, man.
So if you're logged in, I want to make sure that you're logged in all the time. I want to make sure I can monitor your behavior. I want to get as much output out of you as possible.
And it's like, if you really read the Oppenheimer, not the movie they made, but his diaries, I think the guy died like a pacifist, regretting he ever did what he did, because he went there, even though, he was a post-Nazi German or something, he still had enough humanity to say, hey, how about I create energy so that everybody can have lights and electricity, and we could stop having wars over energy resources. That's kind of what he wanted. But as soon as people got their hands on it, as soon as the industrialists and the corporatists got their hands on it, let's make a bomb that can blow up the world. What?
Yeah.
What do you think that's going to happen with AI? What does anybody really think is going to happen with AI and robotics? I think recently the first police gun dog or something was shot. And some guy shot the thing and it broke down because he hit it in the right place. And what's the first thing they did? They armed a robot dog. And it was AI. It had its own consciousness. It had its own thing. And then, eventually it's going to shoot everybody. Or who programmed it? It'll only shoot a certain kind of people. Right? And it'll be sentient. It'll be on its own based on some initial programming, thought processes. They've already said facial recognition is actually racist, right? It can recognize certain people, but it misrecognizes other ethnic groups. So we see
it's still being used.
Yeah, the people that are doing this are not good people. When I say good people, they're not thinking about the positive trajectory of humanity. They're thinking about empowering themselves. That's why they're buying up ridiculous amounts of land and building bunkers. And if they had such good intention for humanity, why are they trying to leave the planet? I mean, come on. Why is it that we can't just go back and watch the first Terminator movie and figure out what they're going to do with AI? And they're already signaling that. Their behavior, their lack of concern about general humanity. These electric car battery companies I talked about, they don't pay these people $1 a day. They don't mind how many people die for them to increase their profit beyond anything you could imagine. If they paid the people a decent wage, they would still be the richest people on earth, but that's not enough. So let us be really aware that where AI is going, I think it's some great stuff. can do the voices, you can do fake pictures. In about 5 years, you won't know who you're looking at. And if you put it on the cloud, they're going to filter all your family pictures, hybridize them in ways that you could never imagine, and you won't know what's real and what's not. Your children will never know a world where they can trust what they see. The level of manipulation will be beyond anything we could even dream about. So those of us who opt out, we take a tech break. We defend ourselves by staying in temporal time, with real time, living and dying time and space, have real relationships, right? There's a whole assault. I really see this assault on human relationships, be it through men and women or do it through parent and child. There's a constant kind of push to disrupt the things that have got us to evolve as a species over tens of thousands of years. And in a few short years, the train is coming to a halt, and it's being guided by people that you wouldn't trust in any other area of your life. But because it's convenient, because it gives us a dopamine or serotonin rush, it hijacks our oxytocin. So we're falling in love with people on a phone or over your laptop. You're having long-term relationships that aren't relationships with people you've never touched. They have devices now. You can put on a headset and a suit, and I think men can masturbate to a VR. I think it's called the Jack-O-Matic or something. And it's just like, good God.
Yeah, we talked about that. I mean, not that, not that specifically, but we talked about how in the virtual world, when Facebook started the metaverse, you had all these people who were complaining about sexual assault because they would put on these jackets or sensory devices, which would give them some physical impulse if they interacted with someone in the metaverse. So it feels like someone else is touching you. And then you had groups of guys who were surrounding women and trying to assault them and rape them. And so you have people whose whole job it was to stop these people in the virtual world. I mean, think about how crazy that is.
I mean, it's mind-boggling. Vin, what you're saying, it's so crazy. What about just take off the suit or goggles and be in the real world? Just be in the real world and take your licks there. I mean, this is insane. You see how insane it gets? And they have a person patrolling the Virtuverse or whatever it's called. And we're buying into it. I think there was even a court case where someone was trying to sue or have somebody arrested for harassing her in the Virtuverse or something, whatever it's called. And what's it called, Katie? The metaverse. Yeah. So why are we buying this? Why, there was a big congressional.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Big congressional.
But it feeds on itself. So, Z, it gets back to what you were saying earlier. Because the more of the stuff we use, the less cognitive function we have. So it's hijacking our brains. So we're more likely to do things without thinking, to make impulsive decisions.
And then there's
to do the same things that everyone else is doing.
Huge government battles over who will control the internet, who will control the thinking of the people. So they don't want any renegades doing it. So they want to ban maybe TikTok or ban something else so they can replace it with their own line of programming, right?
Yeah. Well, this to me is the craziest thing. I know we're getting off topic, but this has been on my mind. We've been talking about TikTok, and the response now when people say, okay, why are you banning TikTok, or why are you talking about banning TikTok? And you listen to what these senators are saying. They're saying, oh, well, China doesn't allow Instagram. China doesn't allow Facebook. It's kind of like, huh? I thought the whole point of being in the U.S. was that you're not in China. I mean, don't we always talk about how terrible China is and how you don't have any freedom and they control what you think and they control what you say? But as soon as we want to do the same thing, now we're comparing ourselves to China. It's just bizarre.
So you can see people already, we're demented as a society. You see mass dementia. It's like the zombie apocalypse, but it's the mind-eating virus. The mind. That's the most. I heard these senators and congressmen. They have no argument. They should stick to whatever it is that they know or whatever it is they don't know. But for the masses of people to get behind any of it, I heard that thing. Well, we're going to ban them because they banned something we like. Wow. Where's the freedom of speech in that? And their biggest concern, I heard one even say, we don't want people just getting the truth whenever they want it. One of them actually said that.
Yeah. Yeah. Who can trust people with the truth? I actually don't. None of this is surprising to me because this impulse has been around for a long time. But what's happened, Z, with technology, it just takes everything to another extreme.
Right.
And then you have to be aware of it. Because to your point, if you just go along with the flow, we end up in this crazy world where suddenly you're like a little rat in a lab experiment. And you have to think a certain way. You have to do what other people want. Right. They're manipulating you for their benefit. And we don't want to have any part of that.
Opt out. I always say opt out. None of the above. Back away from it. Be very careful how you're being duped, and clear your mind. Take a tech break, go to a park, take the family camping, learn some sort of handicraft or skill for basic survival. Have an old car, own an old car, so when they shut off the cars and geo-fence everything, you can still get away or do whatever you want to do, and have something that vaguely looks like freedom, right? Freedom is not free. Freedom holds a high responsibility. And sometime in that freedom, you have to make yourself skillful. You might have to learn how to make your own fire or cook your own food or something like that. So be ready for freedom. Opt out.
Yeah.
It's coming. There's nothing good is being planned for us. There may be good that comes out of some of this stuff, but the plan isn't good. The people that hold the key to this do not care about humanity. You may think, oh, they just don't like poor people, or they just don't like people of color. Don't be fooled. They don't like you, whoever you are, unless you are part of the machine, part of the fuel for their machine. Check them out. Take a close look at these people's behaviors, their views, and what is left in their wake. And that is what's coming for all of us if we don't opt out. Tech breaks, get back to nature, do things with your loved ones, work on your intimacy, your interaction. It's still fun to read books because you can sit quiet, absorb it, let the mind work and ruminate over it. It's still good to talk and hear the voices of people. I always encourage people, if you care about somebody, give them a shout. Don't just go to Facebook and make a little post. Just give them a call. Take 1 minute, 2 minutes. Hey, I'm running, I'm busy. Just wanted to check on you, or whatever you're going to do. Keep it human, right? You follow me?
Yeah, I follow you. Let's keep it human. And you talk about freedom. Let's take back control of our own mind. So again, it gets back to what you said at the beginning, Z. We want to use this, but we don't want it to use us. We want to be the ones who are in charge.
And as is said in the ancient philosophies that we enjoy, the Vedas, the Tao, the greatest companion you can have, the steadiest companion is intelligence. The one thing controlled that you will never regret is your mind. Think about it. Intelligence is the best and steadiest companion one should have. Controlling your mind is the one thing controlled you will not regret. Take charge of yourself. See you next time.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on Podbean, iTunes, or your favorite podcasting app. Each 5-star review helps us bring you more unique and insightful content. Learn more at dharmamedia.com. Peace.